Hey, Blockhead Traders. Here, Blockhead Traders, I must inform you that we are not financial professionals. Nothing we say should be considered financial advice. We offer our own thoughts and opinions to you, the viewer. We expect you to take those thoughts and opinions and form your own financial opinions and make your own financial conclusions. Today is Wednesday, February 23rd, 2022, and this is Blockhead Traders Weekly. In this week's episode, I'm joined by fellow Blockhead trader Viper XL007, and we are going to have a little chat a little bit later about what is crypto, not what is crypto, but why crypto. But before we hop to that week's topic, I want to give a shout out to our Discord, link in the description below. Click that, hop in, say hello to Viper, myself, and any of the other Blockhead traders that are lingering in there. And you'll also find a link to thetagang.com/sprocket888. You can see all of the trades that I make, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But let's hop to this week's episode of Why Crypto. Viper, I want to kind of bring this topic up. The equities market's kind of ugly right now, and I kind of don't want to talk about it. We got the whole threat of the Ukraine, and the markets are just kind of sliding down. Companies are missing earnings, lowering guidance. It's just not a happy place right now. And so I thought we'd just take a episode here and just kind of ask this, I'll call it a basic question of why crypto? Do you have any thoughts?
Indeed. I have lots of thoughts. But I mean, and to your point, we're still in a phase. I don't believe it's going to be this way forever. But we're still definitely in a phase where the equities market and the crypto market are not in lockstep with each other, but they follow each other around. So the bloodbath in equities is not completely escapable in crypto.
That sure is true.
But it is a deeper space, I think, where there are still opportunities, and a lot of that gets into kind of where I stand on the why crypto. But I thought the question of why crypto is especially pertinent because many different angles, friends, family, whoever, like I get the question a lot of, should I be in this? I mean, even my father-in-law, like a year ago now when Dogecoin was exploding and crypto was all over in the news, he was like, what, should I be buying Bitcoin? And so it hits a lot of people's radar. And I mean, the honest truth is I can't tell you if you should or shouldn't. Nobody should. But it is an interesting area. And so I guess my first thought is why is because it's another investment opportunity. I mean, at the very, very fundamental bottom of it all, it's another investment opportunity, another investment vehicle. But for me personally, it certainly goes a lot deeper than that. But I know you kind of came back around. And I guess before I get into more of my deeper ideas or thoughts on it, for me personally, what was your turning point in going, what, I'm giving this another shot? What attracted you?
Yeah, so for me, I guess it was more of let's just try it out. I mean, I kind of understood it a long time ago. Hasn't really changed that much. It's gotten kind of interesting, at least some of the angles, the things you can do with it. So I guess it's similar to the first thing that got me into crypto. The first thing that got me into it was just the fascination of the compute power and the algorithms and the cryptography in it. And, I wanted to make my hardware do those things. Never actually got into it for the money. Here, it's just an interesting, to me, it's an interesting concept of distributing. I won't even say money because it's not really money, but distributing uh, I guess wealth or perceived. It's a new way to apply a technology that's a little bit different than historical, and that's kind of interesting to see like the ecosystems around it. Um, leading up to what you saw a couple past episodes of chicken egg and feed and stuff like that. I really viewed it as almost like trading currency, and that's just boring to me. Trading forex and things like that. That's really the way I viewed it. Um, and then when we started our little crypto series, and I started seeing a different the distributed apps, the DAOs, um, the dexes, just kind of all that stuff was like, well, there's a little bit of utility here, and it's kind of interesting. I still question the longevity and the mainstream adoption and stuff like that, but it's enough that I was curious, and I said, well, let's the best way that I've always learned is to experience. So I said, we'll try it a little bit. So I said, why not?
Yeah. I mean, why not at the end of the day for a lot of things? And so, I mean, kind of to put some bugs in people's ears, as they're, as anybody watching this who's not in crypto should genuinely consider for themselves if it's even right for them. Why do I care? Why don't I care? There's definitely different classes of people that get into crypto that I've seen around the space and whatnot. So one of the very I don't want to call it basic, but kind of fundamental reasons people are in crypto is they think it's going to be here, and they believe in a future where it will be used heavily and in some form or another, and they want to have a lot of that now and be ready. So they don't care about the price; they just want to accumulate and be ready for when this potential future time comes. And I think we see a lot of this, particularly with Bitcoin, obviously with entire nations and countries adopting Bitcoin, probably most sensationally El Salvador, just constantly buying up Bitcoin. And Ethereum doesn't quite attract that kind of crowd. Bitcoin being the quote unquote store of value seems to get more of that crowd. And so, but at the same time, we can kind of break down Bitcoin and Ethereum and then everything else. And there's a lot of conversation on what that everything else is in the future. But to me, Bitcoin and Ethereum are kind of the two that attract the general crowd that just wants exposure to cryptocurrency, but they don't want to get too deep into it. There's we've talked about like Coinbase and plenty of centralized exchanges that make it easy to get that exposure. You could read a chart. You could, maybe want to form a long-term play of 5-10 years down the line, and you just want to peck dollar cost average your way in, and you don't care about the rest of it. And it just becomes an investment vehicle for that. And I see a lot of that, and that is honestly where I think a lot of people start. But for me, I mean, kind of like you just mentioned, it quickly. I mean, time in crypto world is accelerated dramatically. It was probably only 8 months ago when I started getting into crypto more. But I started kind of like you just mentioned, thinking that I was just going in specifically to trade some coins, to trade some tokens, and just kind of currency exchanges and whatnot. But yeah, I got very deep into specifically the Avalanche network, which I'm going to try to stay surface level and not get too deep into technicals or whatnot. But I got deep into the Avalanche network, which is where chicken is, where egg, feed, all that kind of stuff. And I just started seeing all of this utility, like you said. And sure, at the end of the day, I'm trying to make an investment pay off, but the mechanics of that investment are just so much deeper and more gamified, and it's a very dangerous, slippery place to be in. Nothing is guaranteed, but I think what appeals to me and my why is it applies to my gamified mind, where give me a set of rules, and then I'm going to dance around within those rules and, try to figure out the best path forward. And there's a lot of options of ways to, kind of like we showed in the previous videos, like, okay, you want feed, but you could stake your eggs, or you could go to this pool and you could earn it here, but this is more, and da da da. There's all these different options to feel like you're stacking efficiency percentages. And then ultimately, what I've found now that I've gotten to this deeper level of gamification and project investing and connected with creators of some projects, on the blockchain, that probably my favorite reason for me personally to be in crypto is it's just this ability to be at an unprecedented ground level, which quickly cuts both ways. The old adage of don't invest what you can't afford to lose, 100% here. I take very small bites out of these projects because it can be bad down here. But at the same time, you have this unprecedented opportunity to be on the literal ground floor of a particular game or project or something. And that really appeals to me, and why I feel like I've mentioned before that I've taken more of an investor mindset in crypto rather than trading, because trading just wasn't working out because there's no good platform to pull trading off like you can in Thinkorswim or, something like that in equities. So it's more investing of really digging into projects, getting to know them as best you can, and then deciding whether or not they have what it takes. Because there's scams abound, which, I definitely want to make sure that nothing here is painted rosy, that at this very deeper level, it takes a specific mindset. But I don't know, maybe that goes too deep of where I'm at or how I got there, but I feel like it kind of overlaps a little bit with some of what you said.
Yeah, a little bit. The one thing that kind of jumps out in my head as you're kind of talking through that is almost, people watching this video thinking about it, almost, we're saying why crypto. Um, there's reasons why you should not do crypto too. If you take the flip side of it,
Yeah.
um, I
Yeah.
don't want to be negative, but I feel like I talk to people in my job and in passing, and they're like, "Yeah, there's this thing called crypto something or other, and should I put some money in?" Dude, you shouldn't put any money in stuff you don't understand. Like fundamentally,
Yeah.
like if it interests you, like learn about it, get into it. I think both Viper and myself, before we started really like putting any of our pennies, nickels, dimes, dollars into this thing, it was what makes it tick? What is this thing? How does it represent? What does it do? I don't think either of us jumped in and said, "Oh, crypto? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Take my money, make more of it." Like if you have that mindset,
Yeah.
I would say don't even ask just don't do it. But yeah, if it's something that you're like, wow, that's kind of interesting, learn about it first. See what makes it tick. The coolest thing that I think about crypto is it's pretty transparent. Like every single transaction in the history of time is logged in all of these ledgers. There's lots of tools out there that let you kind of explore those ledgers. It's just kind of neat to be able to field through and mine through some of that data. So
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that's super important to harp on. So I'll spend a little bit on it too. Is the why not? And it should be understood that by the time I got to where we are now, we're introducing sprocket to chicken and all that kind of stuff. Um, my journey was as you've seen unfold on the channel here, where it was just learning and learning and learning, and I went through at least 2 months of a semi nightly routine of just kicking up a 10 or 15-minute YouTube video uh, of a good channel. And when I say good YouTube channel, one that's not shilling anything, because crypto YouTube is but a good channel that is truly just teaching you what something is about. And so I don't want to spotlight too much, but for me, Whiteboard Crypto was an amazing channel because he very much keeps any sales pitches and any opinions out of it, and it's just one topic at a time, little bite-sized nuggets of you've probably had a question, what is the blockchain? And he's got a whole video on it, and it's all very straightforward, easy to understand, spoken through analogies. So the point though is, before any money touched anything, any real money, like it was a constant barrage of information, learning, understanding before going in, and that is key to everything. I mean, it's key in equities, it's key to stocks, it's key to options, futures. Everything we've talked about is that's what the purpose here is to encourage that education, not Lambos.
Yeah. One other thing that I think is just super cool in the crypto world, and I think if I went back in life and actually became some sort of like high school teacher or something like that, I totally would craft an economics lesson around crypto. And what I mean by that is there are so many tangible things and the way that just the law of economy works. There's so many examples: supply, demand, liquidity, um, you know, oversaturation of a particular thing in a marketplace, and just all of that is so like relevant and linked. Like all the things you learned about in school in the economics class, I feel like kind of spinning it with crypto would really pique a lot of the kids interest in that. And it's teaching the same lessons that you learn in the book of economics and stuff. And I think that's really cool. I mean, just even talking to some of my kids, explaining, oh, well, you need this in here because, you want people to be able to move money in or out or trade this good or that good. And that's liquidity. And then the price of this kind of goes up because supply is low, demand is high, just all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah, very much so. And to me, now shifting a little bit into why, there's a particular project which I won't mention by name because we'll see how it turns out. But there's a particular project I'm following very closely, which their entire goal is to teach people about how to get into crypto and teach those concepts you just mentioned: supply, demand, liquidity pooling, inflation, and all these other things. And they're doing it through an intensely gamified process. And it's an RPG game. But like in the RPG game, for anyone who's familiar with RPGs, like you would go to your garden and you would grow carrots and you could harvest those carrots once a day, and you have a small plot of a garden and that's going to only hold 2 carrots a day. And then you go harvest and you go take them and put them over. Like all of these things tie into these fundamental economic processes. And they're trying to do it in a gamified way that really kind of unlocks these thinking gears, kind of like you said, of economic models that exist. And so to me, that's very fascinating and very interesting. I mean, just in the projects I've been in and the projects I've gotten wrecked in to the position size that I was willing to put into it. Inflation is a huge, huge one that bad crypto projects are readily available to teach, where they just sling APYs of millions of percent. And then all of a sudden that token you're gaining at millions of a percent APY is worth diddly squat and dropping. And that's inflation. So, that is also a why not, because, that's this, I like to call this like the gamification, all this stuff, like that's phase, or at least level 2 of crypto. As we've said many times, there is very much the level 1, which is just the exposure for investment purposes. The Bitcoin and Ethereum, trade the chart, moving in and out. Absolutely. But for me, as I've gotten this much deeper, this is where I'm comfortable personally, but it's definitely not there's a lot of people that I would say, nope, don't go here. So, but you are so much deeper now. You've now invested in an NFT. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. I got a little NFT related to the chicken project, chicken.farm. Yeah, they minted some NFTs last weekend. It's part of this gamification. There's some releases coming out or some updates where we get to do a little farming on there, and I guess I'm just a farm kind of person at heart.
This is down home on the farm.
Yep.
But yeah, there's a lot we could dig into for that at a future time. And really just to show, like, again, that high level gamification of the space, in ways that it can be very successful, both for you and for your, like, it's this combination of entertainment and investment. And I think that's kind of what draws me in, and community in this particular space. Avalanche in general, the chain that I mentioned, just the time that we're in of projects popping up on there is very community centric, which is why it's so easy right now to connect with the project founders, which is always a huge thing when getting into any of these projects. Is that's just part of due diligence, and it's a level of due diligence that you don't really get in other investment strategies. Nobody's going, like, you can tune into an earnings call, but you're not going to hit up the CEO of that Fortune 500 company and ask them about their company. But that's also just me.
Yeah, actually, I kind of equate that due diligence that you're talking about really as a replacement or the only thing that's out there, right? So if you got some, think of a lot of these new crypto things as IPOs. Okay, they're brand new projects, just like an IPO is some brand new company. They've got an idea. They're going out there. They're trying to seek funding. Maybe they're just trying to trade publicly and do an initial public offering where they're going to raise a bunch of funds for their company. In those IPOs, there's a lot of due diligence that is required for the company before they're even allowed to be listed on an exchange. They have to do financial audits. They have to release so much of their financial records. You can read about the company. In crypto, Viper and I could probably start a little crypto project and say, yeah, come here, we're going to give you tokens. Like there's nobody looking out for your best interest. And so trying to connect with the development teams, see what the community's like, that's the equivalent of reading the IPO release documents and what are the people that are looking into that IPO, the analysts, what are they saying? You're not going to find any analysts evaluating any of these new projects. And so I think it's the same type of thing, just with a twist.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is also to emphasize the importance of, the combination of strategies we've talked about thus far on this entire channel of robotic thinking and level-headed and pushing emotions aside. Because if you can have a very common sense minded approach to things, you're gonna get hurt. I mean, I've gotten hurt on some projects and whatnot, but that's position sizing and risk mitigation. But you're gonna avoid a lot of crap if you have that kind of mindset of being able to really dig into something and ask yourself, is this unique? Does this have the value they say it does? And then, going even further, getting into the community. I mean, all these projects live and die on their Discord and their Twitter presence. So you really have to get good at that. And if anybody is digging into more information and learning, I mean, AMAs like Twitter Spaces, which is just a stage presence of, there's a lot of those held where it's can be community focused, where they have multiple projects come up and talk. But it is important to call out that, like, before something gets listed on the stock exchange, like, the term rugged is huge in crypto, where a project rugs and it yanks out from underneath everybody. You don't really get that in the stock market because of those regulations, and you have to substitute to do those regulations yourself, which is why, unpopular opinion or not, a very real answer to crypto for some people could be, I'm going to wait until this is more regulated, because we're at least on a path where that seems to be more likely than complete shutdown. Like we've kind of passed the point of, China banning crypto, like at least here in the US, but we're certainly going to get more regulation over it. And that'll be interesting to see what that opens up for the more regulated projects or things like that. And if it can still maintain what's attractive now, but also give just a little bit more, I don't know, security. I don't know exactly the word, but
Peace of mind.
yeah.
One of the other cautions, I guess, if I jump back into the why not campaign, crypto is really hard, in my opinion, to keep track of what you're in. Like how much have you put in? Where do you stand with that? Because once you kind of go in crypto, everything happens relative to some type of currency that's not US dollars, and you're bouncing between, oh, this currency, this token, this NFT, this other token generates this token, and this has a different value. And it's super easy to just lose track of where are you in your crypto investment. Like, okay, I put $1,000 in, but dang, how much do I have now? $600, $1,400? Like, it's really, really hard once you really dive off of there. If you're just trading things on a Coinbase, buy, sell coins, that's easy. That's not hard. But when you start going into the things that, in my opinion, are interesting in crypto, it's hard to keep track of that, and that can be really discouraging for people because you lose your bearings. I kind of equate it to, what's that phenomenon when you kind of like fly a plane or whatever, but you lose your where's the ground, and you kind of become inverted, and you just lose what's up, what's down. I feel that's
Yeah.
relevant.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also interesting. I mean, it is something that I still struggle with figuring out how to keep straight. Because as an example, I recently found out that, I was focused on moving between games and whatnot, where it was like, okay, here's 400 eggs, and, I have them, I'm staking them, I'm getting feed from them, like we've talked about. And then it was like, oh, I could take those eggs and turn them into this other token over here, and there's use for that in that game right now. The eggs are kind of on hold, and so I'll switch over to that and switch back, and then like not realizing that maybe the value of egg dropped, and then I switched everything over, and then maybe it rose back, and then I switched back to egg, and like I completely lost track of value in that equation. But what's also interesting is the concept of value completely shifts. Like, to someone very much involved in the chicken ecosystem or something like that, if you said I got 500 eggs, then they'd be like, oh man, like nobody cares what the US dollars is because they know what the function of those eggs are. They're like, oh man, you could stake that and get a whole bunch of feed. You kind of pause the US dollar equation and go into a different value mindset, which is interesting. I don't know that that's a why or a why not. It's just an interesting phenomenon of getting into the gamification sphere and starting to see things in the realm of the game. But that, I guess we're going to call that a why not, because it is very disorienting and very problematic should you be trying to liquidate on a shorter time frame, because you're going to be surprised potentially when you go to cash out.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you mentioned, like, oh, these egg has a different value or something like that to a particular user. I equate it a lot to like collectors of different things that'll go around. To be like, oh man, I got these sweet baseball cards, or I got this great action figure set, and you're like, yeah, dude, so like that, what's that? And I think it's like any collection of something. It has a different value to certain people, and that's kind of interesting because that doesn't you don't get as much of that in the equities world. Like everybody's kind of in the equities world for almost the same thing. You don't get quite as differing perceptions, I'll call it, of value in equities, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, and some of it's locked in that it doesn't apply. Like I can't tell you I have 100 Peloton stocks and then you go, "Oh, well, I got 50 eBay want to trade." Like that's not a thing.
That is true. Yep.
But it is um, very like the collector mindset is very much in play. Especially obviously NFTs, like a lot of what everybody sees about NFTs is art collections and things like that. And that's a thing, but in this tier of crypto that we're talking about in utility, it's the value of an NFT is definitely a little bit based on looks because everybody likes that, but in the gamification sphere, it is very much based on what is that NFT going to do for me, and so price of it goes up depending on how much token that it emits, like how like if it's a piece of farmland or something that emits tokens through a gamification process, like that's worth more. But it is also fun, again, the gamer mindset. So that project I mentioned earlier, the unnamed project, I minted another character for that game today. A mint means bringing an NFT into existence, and it's very much equated in most cases, not in the farmland case of the NFT Sprocket got, but in most cases, it's like opening a pack of baseball cards or something because it's minted and it's generated randomly based on a set of criteria, and you don't know which one you're going to get, and then you get it, and there's a rarity list, and you fall somewhere on that rarity, and it's just exciting from that collector's gaming mindset. And so I was thrilled. The one I minted today was the most rare character in the game. He's a 0.7% rarity, and that was that feeling of like opening up the pack of cards, like I did it, I got the golden ticket or something. And in this case, I know it's going to be the golden ticket because should the game take off like I obviously am invested in thinking it will, this is going to be a big seller in the terms of the base currency, which is Avalanche. So I don't know. That's just kind of an interior look at what goes through my mind in this more gamified economy. So, but at the end of the day, that's just purely my perspective, my interest level, my engagement level. There is a lot that goes into this as far as, like we've said, the same rules apply across position sizing, risk mitigation, loss tolerance, all that kind of stuff. For me personally, I'm involved because it's interesting. It can be profitable, even on the smaller sizing and whatnot. And it just, I don't. It captures my attention. It's a fun way to use a small portion of my portfolio, which I think we probably need to really focus on is a small portion of my portfolio. Like it's not like going in and just throwing everything at this. Like this is a very highly speculative portion that's fun to get more hands on and maneuver around in all kinds of different ways. By no means, if you're in the investment trading mindset, by no means is it a straight up replacement of equities in my mind. That's established, that's stable, that's stable. And nobody should approach crypto of like, I'm just going to skip that and do this. Like that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but that's just me. That's just my take. And I hope more than anything, this doesn't convince anybody to or not to, my hope is that the takeaway here is if your curiosity is piqued, that you go down the rabbit hole of education and information and learning and then see what happens. You know, I mean, to me, that's the great entry point is learn, learn, learn. Maybe you lose interest through that, or maybe it just fuels you more and more, but now you're more equipped to make smarter decisions. So that's, I don't know. I guess that's where I stand.
Yeah. I'll kind of echo the interest comment there. A lot of people say, "What should I invest in? Where should I put my money?" And one of the very first things I tell them is, "Well, what are you interested in?" Because I think if you're going to buy equities, right, go invest in the companies you know. Go invest in the companies you're interested in. You like tech? Go invest in tech. Go research tech. You like car companies? Go look at car companies. Invest in what you know. Invest in what interests you, because that's really where you're going to actually do research. You're going to look into it because you're going to find that topic exciting. And so, if crypto is like, yeah, how can I make some money? Yeah, is it really interest you? If it doesn't, don't waste your time. But if it does interest you, go learn about it. Go, you know, gain knowledge, and then make decisions on it. And so that's where I stand. So that brings us to the end of this week's episode. Really, this is just a casual conversation between Viper and myself. People ask us, but I heard about this crypto. Why this? Why that? And we just thought we'd spend a little bit of time kind of just kicking around. Well, this is why we looked at something, and these are some drawbacks that we see and some things that detracted us or deterred us for a while. And so, if anything, I hope you find some of this information enlightening, informative. Uh, I hope it drives you to open up the Googles and do a little more research on your own. Find out what piques your curiosity, what gets you excited about crypto or not crypto, and I hope that's something that improves your trading and your investing and brings you enjoyment. So, good luck out there trading this week. And remember, think outside the block.